Welcome to Scattered Brain Podcast. Today we will be discussing getting started investing.
All right. So we are going live with this. Now, this was not actually something I was initially planning to do. This was going to initially be a phone call with all the individuals who seem to be showing early adoption support for the soon-to-be many legs or lanes of business that I'm looking to launch. The demand and interest has been much higher than I was expecting, which is always a great thing. And that's obviously kept within the locality of my connections, which that in its own right is phenomenal. That means as this opens up to the public and people who may be interested in similar things, that we may actually see even more demand. So that being said, I started thinking that maybe this made more sense to just go ahead and actually convert this to a video, the entire consultation. I know this will sort of kind of feel like I'm undercutting my statement of it all being personalized, but this particular point doesn't necessarily need to be personalized because everyone needs to be starting on the same foot. We will all travel differently. We will all have a different gait. We will have different goals. We will do a lot of things differently in our financial journey to whatever that goal may be. But we all have to kind of start on the same foot, right? There has to be sort of that same pre-flight checklist that has to be done regardless of how we proceed, how we endure, and how we change up moving forward. So, that being said, and I do apologize if I sound a little low energy, it is a little late. I'm running off a little bit of sleep. And I just typed this. So, what we will see in this sort of consultation overview is that there is a lot, probably far too much. Anyone that knows me knows I have a terrible, terrible tendency to be verbose, and I do apologize for that up front. So, for that, just understand that this documentation will be provided to all who have shown an interest as well as with the video. And then the video will, after some minor editing, just to keep it all obviously coherent, streamlined, it will also make its way to my podcast channel on YouTube so that it can, be a potential opportunity for anyone else that stumbles across the video that shows an interest in learning more about speculative security stock investing, all these sort of investment terms. That will actually, if you end up kind of lost on some of the things mentioned as far as terminology, don't worry. That is the expectation at this point. We all have to kind of learn how to speak the language. I find language to often be one of the more difficult, unspoken parts of learning something new. And again, much like the fact that me being a software engineer, application developer, system admin, server engineer, all these fun things, I did have to teach myself it. And the biggest struggle that I come across time and time again is when you are sort of self-taught or autodialectic, you lose out on industry terms, the more nuanced meaning for certain terms, and that can really spiral into some problems from a communication standpoint. So communication, terminology, all that sort of stuff will be covered. That is something that would probably be done regardless of your interest, unless you specifically state you don't need these things during some of the early courses, just to make sure we're all speaking the same language, because again, we need to ensure we are being responsible and effective and in this sort of journey. And that's essentially what it's going to be, right? The journey. And hopefully, we don't detour through any pits. We don't end up in Mordor. We end up exactly where we want to be, which is economic enrichment, or at the very least, stability, or understanding a path forward of what it takes to become stable. So, to do that, we have a little bit of a roadmap here. I've always been a fan of the classic 5 W's and an H. I think it can apply in a lot of ways, even if it doesn't seem like it should. We can sort of, I'm saying necessarily modify or force it, but it has application just when you're talking strictly guideline perspective, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to run with this as a guideline. Nothing that I do is going to be rigid, right? You don't have to go about it the way it appears to be presented. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's totally normal. There will be very little that I think you will experience initially if you're new to this topic that is abnormal, right? It's a process, regardless of where we are intellectually, from an experience standpoint, capital. None of these things really change the human element, right? We're still people, and when working with something new, there is that shroud of mystery, and with that comes a lot of anxiety, apprehension, and potentially imposter syndrome. Obviously, the opposite of imposter syndrome, which will be mentioned many times in my videos, because I think it's very important to keep an understanding of one end imposter syndrome, other end Dunning-Kruger, which would be the overestimation of one's skill set as it pertains to any given topic. So obviously we want to not be towards the Dunning-Kruger end. Imposter syndrome is totally normal. I believe, it has been observed that people with imposter syndrome tend to actually be very high-level performers. So if you feel like an imposter, if you feel like this is overwhelming, that's probably a good thing, right? It means you are having a normal response and you're in a good spot. If you're sitting here thinking, oh man, I know everything there is to know, I can say that as somebody who's made that mistake. Probably not the right mindset to have. So if need be, take a break, recalibrate, and then come back when you are not necessarily feeling like you have all the answers already. And even if you do, still take a moment. Take a moment just to make sure that you're traveling on a road towards a destination that makes sense for what you want to do. All right, so on that note, because it is getting kind of late, as it always is, I'm going to kind of try to move quickly through this. This video will be provided both in a raw format to those that have already reached out to me with an interest in pursuing this, as well as a cleaned up, just removing all the uhs and all that sort of thing from it. That will be uploaded to YouTube as previously stated, and I do apologize if I repeat myself. If you're coming into this at this part of what I'm doing, just know that this is on a channel known as Scattered Brain, because that's my brain, quite scattered. I will try not to chase too many squirrels as we do this. Okay, and again, that's what the guideline here, or the roadmap, the structure here is to help us do. So what are we doing? So I sort of just kind of really just explained it. Again, you can read sort of there as to what we're doing, but this is the initial consultation. This is to make sure that this is right for you, this is right for me, and if it is, then let's chat, let's lock this on, let's make something happen. Now, I do want to disclose early on that this has to be a good use of my time. Historically, I have offered these sort of things sort of pro bono, right? And if you're not familiar with the term, for the good, right? Latin for basically free, meaning that, friends, family, whoever, acquaintances, and even just random people that I probably was just playing video games with, I would offer this stuff to them. And I have learned over time that it's not the approach. I know that sounds ridiculous. Like, of course I would say that, right? I have something to get out of it. I'm not actually pursuing incentives at a level that suddenly turns this into, my own get-rich scheme. This is insignificant in the overall picture of what I'm trying to accomplish as far as incentives. The reason why I do seek something akin to a transaction is simply because I think it keeps people honest. There's something that happens when there's a sort of social contract for business services or product, entered with expectations, and an actual purchase has occurred. It keeps both sides honest. It makes things real. I have just learned over many, many years and many, many experiences of doing this pro bono that you get a lot of half measures, a lot of half commitments, and quite frankly, half ass on one or both sides, or all the sides, all the things, right? When it becomes real in the form of a transaction, suddenly the commitment level on all ends increase. I have harder expectations around myself because now I have accepted a transaction for my good and or service, and in this case that mostly tends to be the same thing: education and experience transfer, right? For you obviously are committing something to get something, so I would expect and hope that you will show up, that you will pursue this, and we will get somewhere good from it, right? I want this to obviously be strategic partnerships, no matter who I talk to, no matter how we approach this. That is my goal. And at the end of the day, like I said, I used to do this for free. I just want to better people's lives and share things that I've learned. And as we'll discuss, I've learned a lot in my life, usually at great pain, whether that be economic, physical, emotional, etc. So, if I can streamline that, condense it, and provide it to people in a better format than personal experience, by all means. All right, so that actually kind of hit up the why are we doing this, right? That really didn't shape, what I just stated is kind of hitting the why we're doing and what we're doing pretty much as I intended to discuss it, which is why we did. So the main thing I sort of talk about, and I apologize, I've had one of my major saliva glands removed, so I tend to get dry mouth when I speak. So I'm sorry if I stop to drink. It's just to keep things going. All right. So thank you for accommodating that. All right. Now, all right. So the thing that I notice when I sit back and I look at things like the Andrew Tate stuff, or really anyone that basically has been ever investigated by CoffeeZilla and similar style investigators or journalists that are familiar with this area. Those things I became aware of by watching those videos and and consuming that content. Not exactly something I normally would have sought out, but it is interesting to learn about people that are out there. I believe the term is grifting, gaslighting. To me, they're just frauds, right? There's a lot of them out there. There's big names like Andrew Tate, but then there's smaller people, right? You got your Logan Pauls and all that crap out there. I should say allegedly, right? I don't know their situation. I don't proclaim to, but I do know that the products that I have seen being solicited did make sense to me. It makes sense to me for one very simple reason. There's very few things in this world one size fits all, right? We're just not people of that sort of template, right? That's just not how things work. My life is very different from yours. So why, this was something that Bruce Lee kind of figured out with, the foundation of Jeet Kune Do, right? Why would a martial arts instructor teach you martial arts as they learned it, right? You're not the same, right? You probably need something a little bit more dynamic, versatile, adaptive, and personalized to yourself. And that's what this needs to be. So the fact that a product is sold as a one-size-fit-all and usually horrendously expensive, right? To me, those are sort of flags that these are potentially fraudulent products, or at the very least, way overscoped in promises, and you could probably expect under delivery as well. There's no doubt in my mind that is probably what will occur. So with what I'm doing here is a little bit different, right? And it most likely will mean that I cannot accommodate as many people as I would like to because of the personal touch. It means that each person is going to have a personalized course, personalized profile to achieve whatever their goal is. And that's the first part of the personalization. We all have different goals. So why would you sell one product within the realm of, you know, economic enrichment or even just speculative investment, and then expect everyone's goals to equally be achieved by that measure? That right there is, you know, an indicator of intellectual dishonesty. So yeah, I mean, that's the sort of underlying stratum there, right? Like, we need to ensure that what I am selling, what I am providing, is for you, your name on it, your flavor, your filter, right? And we accomplish that by this discussion and follow-on discussions where we talk about your financial, and these are things that I will need from you, right? If you decide to move forward, you need to know what your goals are, right? I would recommend probably looking at the SMART goal format, even if you find it sort of, you know, too academic in format. I think if you have nothing else, that's a good starting point. But make sure you have goals, right? What are you trying to do? And, you know, maybe for yourself, understand why you want to do it, right? I find that, you know, people say, oh, I want to get rich. Well, why do you want to get rich? Because I want to get rich and I want to have certain things. Well, in my opinion, that's the wrong reason, right? I remember a young man came up to me out, not even out, right? He didn't even come up to me. He was driving next to me in like a windows tinting vehicle. And, you know, I was in my C8 at the time, top down, just enjoying, you know, at the time I was living in Florida, nice Florida afternoon. And he said, you know, screamed at me at the intersection, sir, what would you tell a 24-year-old like me that has a lot of ambition so that one day I can drive a car like that? And, you know, at that point, you know, it wasn't a hard answer to provide because I had already been providing it many times over, and that is chase your passion, not the money, right? Most people chase money. When you chase money, you're just repeating everyone else, right? Now it's a rat race, right? So you can't necessarily expect to find, you know, some magic answer to achieving copious levels of success if you're not coming up with a magically different approach and motivation. If your motivation is to chase a passion, then the money naturally will follow that. That's just how things work. There's a lot to that would take too long to unpack, but, you know, in short, you know, when we're talking about when I taught myself how to code and how I taught myself IT, I love that stuff. I've always loved that stuff. I didn't go to college for it. I've had very little external training and mentorship, and I have learned a significant amount of very complex things. Well, why is that? Is that because I have a big brain? I don't know, maybe. I think more of it, though, was because I loved it. You know, you didn't have to force me to sit there and learn these things. I did it to myself. I spent many, many hours, late nights when I could be sleeping. I could be doing a lot of other things, but I was learning. I was researching. I was writing code. And as you do these things, because you love what you do and there's a passion, you will slowly drive towards becoming adept at it, or at the very least develop a skill set that has value in the world, right? And that passion translates over into the work, into the quality, into who you are. Therefore, those that are seeking that level of capability and talent, that position in the meritocracy, are going to open up their accounts and start writing checks to attract people at that skill level that you're providing. And you probably wouldn't have accomplished it if you were just chasing the check to begin with. Because I've seen it so many times. I'm sure other people have. If you really sat back and you were honest with yourself about any time you approached something that you wanted for the wrong reasons, it likely didn't work out. Things like money, success, whatever, right? Those things have to normally be secondary or tertiary effects of something else, right? That's one of the biggest key points of how to start on finding success. Don't make it your primary objective. Make fulfillment your primary objective. Make something else, and the other things will follow on. Just the way it works. There's a lot of areas that applies to. We can always talk more in depth on those topics later. All right. So that being said, understand that this is not going to be a get-rich-quick scheme. They do exist, right? There are ways to get rich quick, within a relatively short period of times, but there's a reason why that happens, because it's essentially a lottery, right? It's a lottery you will most likely lose, and you will most likely lose all your money and end up in a worse situation, and digging out of that will not be easy. So don't ever go into anything with that expectation. If anyone is selling you on that idea, understand you are most likely talking to a charlatan or someone who's trying to steal your money. All right, so we're moving on, and I probably could have fixed the margins on this so that I didn't have to keep breaking my tempo on the format. Anyways, so as far as who can be involved, again, you can read through this. I'm going to probably give you a short list of people who I'd rather don't get involved, because I'm open to anyone. If we can make it work, we can lock on the agreement. Let's do it. The people I really would though prefer to not be involved with me are going to be people who are seeking to enact fraud. People that are bad actors, right? If you're looking to do something that even gets close to coloring outside the legal lines or moral, ethical lines, I'm not interested. I don't need this. This is meant to be a positive thing, a vehicle for positive change. So if you are going to use what I am teaching to introduce negativity in any capacity, I'm not interested. And obviously, the problem there is most people that are seeking to do that are not going to be honest up front. And just know that it's going to be very difficult for me to teach someone and not spend enough time with them to start to pick up on things. I may not be a mentalist. I may not be a body language expert or a detective. There's a lot of things I may not be. I may be sometimes gullible and too trusting. But eventually, I do get a gut instinct, right? I get that intuition, and I don't normally ignore that. So if I get a feeling like you are one of those people, a wolf in sheep's clothes, I reserve the right to break it off, right? And I will return your money in correlation to the amount of time, content, etc. Whatever you got out of it up to that point, you paid for. I will return what you didn't. There are no guarantees here, right? I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to come out of this, Warren Buffett level of investing expertise, because I don't have that. If you're looking for that, you probably have to go somewhere else to find that. I will give you what I have to offer, which is somebody who approached multiple layers of improvement of my financial profile. So just so and it's a little embarrassing, but I'll disclose that, for me, I made the normal mistakes at 19 years old of falling in love with the first girl that showed me attention, or at least what I thought was love, and financially compromising myself terribly. I was, in the Marines at the time, and I made a lot of bad choices, both personal and financially, which would eventually lead to foreclosures and all kinds of I was in a deep, deep pit by the time I was even able to drink legally, right? By 21, I had credit scores so low that homeless people had better credit scores than I did. I think there was even points in which, I applied for things, in person, and, they actually made visible, distressed expressions, like breathing heavy. I think even at one point somebody said, I didn't even know FICO could go that low. So, I didn't just dig myself out of that, right? And everything that I say I can provide proof, evidence to it, right? So, at that point, pit of despair, near homeless, I had nothing. Credit score in the low 300s to now, my credit score is routinely north of 700. I'm relatively wealthy, doing pretty well for myself. And where was I going with this? Damn it, there goes that scattered brain nonsense. The point is that I'm getting at is I can provide evidence to the fact that my approach, the way that I did things, isn't just something I'm saying. I made it happen. I made it happen under most likely, not guaranteed, conditions likely worse than yours. And I was able to do it in a way that didn't require so much from me that, I'm missing a leg, right? I didn't have to sell any kidneys. I just did it methodically, responsibly, and I got out of it, right? I am, now in a much better position. These issues do not exist for me anymore. I accomplished it, and therefore I know I can teach somebody to accomplish it as well. So that's where we are with that. Now, I think that the reason I mention that is because investing doesn't make sense if your financial profile is asymmetrical in a manner in which that your lenders are absolutely raking you over the coals. If that's happening, then you will likely, and we'll talk more about this, but you will likely see more economic enrichment by not investing, instead taking that capital and doing other things with it. And there are things that you will not be aware of, latent, hidden, non-visual things that these systems over long periods of time by groups of people who are incredibly educated and intelligent have designed systems to exploit the psyche of the human mind to create transfers of wealth that should be criminal, but they're not, because the information is available. You just have to look for it, right? You have to know where to find it. You have to put in the time and the effort, and if you do, you too can play on an even playing field, but you have to do it, which is why it's not, advertised. So that's the other side. If you are not in a healthy position, whether this be physical, mental, economic, it doesn't matter, right? If you're being honest with yourself and you're only doing this because you're in a state of desperation, shouldn't be. That's a bit of Warren Buffett's advice, right? That speculative investment is 90% emotions, 10% everything else, and I agree with that. And I'll explain more in depth should we proceed forward on what that looks like. And so again, that goes back to the responsibility aspect, which we talked about, and then last but not least, if you're not going to fulfill the commitments, the promises that you make, both spoken and unspoken, as a part of this, then I would ask you not to, because then in that case, you're almost seeking failure, or at the very least, you're going to make it so difficult for us to collaborate together on your enrichment that this would not be a good use of your time, money, or my time and sanity. So let's just avoid that if possible. And then, just a little bit there, just kind of playing off that. If you say you're going to do something, let's do it, right? You're not going to upset me. You're not going to make me cry if you say you can't do something, or you're not going to follow through on something. That is totally fine with me. Don't do it. That's fine. I'd rather you just be honest. You're not. I'm pretty chill in most things. So, y'all. All right. Where can you be involved? So this one very, very brief. Obviously globally. I work from home. If you don't have the means and the access to be involved then that's fine. Involved with technology, maybe we can find some accommodations. It's going to be kind of difficult if obviously you're like Ted Kaczynski, right? You're living in a shack and you refuse to touch any kind of technology. That's going to make things very difficult. But I don't even think if we speak two different languages that should be a barrier. There are means and methods to make that work. Now, obviously, that may change the buy-in cost, right? If I have to rebuild everything and use some sort of tooling to deliver it to you in a coherent format of like Mandarin, you're asking for a little more of my time, so I'm gonna need to adjust accordingly. And then when that's really up to you for the most part. Initially, the response as normal with these sort of things is going to come down to if I'm available. I do have a list of people that are filling up kind of quick, which I wasn't expecting because I haven't even launched my site yet, right? It's still a placeholder. So, which is fine. Again, this stuff doesn't need the website in order to be done, as evident by what I'm doing. Thank you, YouTube, for providing a platform for me to start putting some of these resources in the cloud on their platform for consumption. So the only thing that I would say before you commit to moving forward with me, just understand I do have a brain tumor. I do have a lot of fun health conditions. A lot of things have been moving on the up. Great, phenomenal. It's 9:30 and I'm still cooking for the day. Oh gosh, I can't believe I just said that. I really am mad. I've never said that in a verbal, out loud manner. It's happened. I'm ruined. Anyways, existential crisis aside, I'm still getting things done for the day. So, things are improving, but it is always possible that I may need a rain check due to my health issues or other commitments, right? And just like as it applies to me, I know it applies to you too, right? Totally fine. Just I think in both cases, as long as we keep each other informed of any sort of changes that need to be made as far ahead as possible, I think we'll be good. Not a big deal, right? So this I recommend read through. Essentially, some of this is what we've already talked about. This is really the part that is your homework if you're going to move forward. These are the things that you need to assess on your own time and decide how much you feel comfortable disclosing or sharing that with me. Understand that I'm not asking for anything. I will accept whatever you provide, and I will give you an honest assessment on what I can do with that, or what I believe we can do with that. The less you give me, the harder that will be, right? This is your intimate information. You do not have to share this if you don't want to. Just understand it very well, like anything else, could under-prepare both of us for the effort and strategy that we need to create to get your goals accomplished. Nice. I don't think I spelled financial right there. Let's see if we can fix that real quick. Anywho, so yeah, that's that part. The bigger part is tools. So I believe that anytime you're doing something like what I'm trying to accomplish here, where you're actually going to be using tools that are simulation accounts, right? And they're pretty cool. I actually used one when I was in high school, when I was in my economics class. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those, but they're essentially just they're fake brokerage accounts that aren't fake, right? You get like given monopoly money and you get to go crazy on a fake portfolio that is driven off real speculative market movements, right? So you use monopoly money, for instance, to buy Bitcoin, and based upon the real performance of Bitcoin, you can see what it does. It's useful for testing theories, exactly what it says, simulations. Learning is obviously its go-to. If you have a particular one that you prefer to use, I'm all ears. Same with platforms. I've used a couple of different platforms as it pertains to brokerage, clearinghouse, etc. And again, we'll go over the difference of what those are, what their involvement is. Should that be something you want to involve in your level of mentorship? There's obviously, we live in an age of automation, AI, etc. To me, dangerous, right? Because what is automation? Automation is automation, right? So do you really want something to not have involvement from you where automation can just run away and drag your bank account with it? That's not to say it's a terrible thing. It's just it adds a layer, right? On top of learning the actual investment world, you may need to learn how automation plays into that if you decide to take advantage of that. And there is a lot of really useful ways to implement that, especially if you're not looking to have such a heavy hands-on sort of day training approach, which sure, I mean, I don't discourage that at all. I use a lot of it myself. I think, and it has its place, and like everything, when used appropriately and responsibly, it can really boost your income and boost your long-term wealth outlook. So by all means, do it. And then the other thing is like non-investment tools. So I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would I need to look at non-investment tools, reporting, whatever, for investing? It will make sense during the courses because there is, investing is a holistic commitment, and there are ways things are involved and your performance of investments in ways that you probably would not realize. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be learning an expensive lesson like that using your real money. And that's a lot of what this is, right? A lot of this is I have underwent lessons that cost me tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Painful lessons. And I recovered from them, much as I stated, my early adulthood mistakes. And, things were learned because of it. And so to me, it doesn't matter if you're a 16, 17-year-old kid who just started working part-time and you want to start your, life off not making the mistakes I made, or if you're somebody who's closing in on retirement and you just want to get a little bit more bump, right, to what you're doing, and you really don't have the fault tolerance or the resources or whatever is the case to learn these expensive lessons on your own. Pricing for my courses are still not determined yet. I have not charged anybody anything yet. That will follow. I need to do a fair and honest assessment on what makes sense. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be nothing compared to any of the even low-level courses by unknown names. Like those grifts. This is all going to be reasonably, realistically priced, and when you do the value proposition and cost analysis, you will realize it is totally worth it. If I could have found what I'm offering when I got started, I would have definitely jumped in on it. Just because I now know what I know, with hindsight 2020. I know there are just certain lessons out there that you will learn through experience that if you could comfortably, reliably hear somebody tell you yes or no to do something, that would be so wonderful. And the problem is, and this is a greater problem, because you don't even know it with me, right? How do you know that someone's being honest with you, right? How do you know that they're not grifting you, they're not trying to scam you, especially when it's something as emotionally draining and as impactful as your financial profile? And I think this is why a lot of people don't get anywhere close to this. It's just radioactive to so many people. They're so scared. They see, videos, these idiots on Wall Street bets who somehow vaporized $50,000 they didn't have and doomed themselves to the next who knows how many decades of eating ramen noodles. And they see that and they're like, there's just too much I don't know. And since I don't know, I won't touch it. And I'm not going to say it's a bad choice. that's far better than, proceed forward knowing that you know nothing and, let's see what happens. That, what the kids call that full send. Yeah, that's not a good idea either. So I respect, aversion over, blind, manic approaches. So, by all means, if that's where you end, that's where you end, and I don't blame you. But I assure you, it doesn't need to be that way. There is safe, responsible approaches that we can have to this that will acclimatize you to the environment of speculative investing in a manner and format which keeps you comfortable, achieves your goals, and potentially gets you to a point where maybe one day you're sitting here, excited to share what you've learned so that someone else doesn't make the mistakes that you made, or in my case, I made. So the mistakes I made can be your gains that one day you turn around and maybe teach your children or you teach somebody else. And the beauty of that is now we're 2 or 3 layers in deep and nobody had to learn it the hard way. That would be amazing. And finally, I think, and this to me is probably the biggest thing that I personally would like to achieve by this, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not so crazy about the pricing. I would love for any of my efforts to put the frauds out of business, right? That would just make me happy. That would make me happy to hit some of these people who we know have done things like rug pulls, pump and dumps, pyramid schemes, Ponzi's, whatever. I would love to know that we have enriched enough of the population on how to be responsible and educated as it pertains to financial enrichment to the point where these people lose their fangs. They no longer have the means to take advantage of the populace. I think that would be pretty cool personally. I mean, I think that would be amazing. I think, everyone would benefit from something like that, even if it's just proximal or vicariously. But yeah. So at that, we're at about 45 minutes. I'm sure by the time this makes it to YouTube, probably can trim that down quite a bit. So if you are somebody I'm providing the raw file to, I do apologize that took so long, but you knew what you were in for, because if you got the raw file, chances are you know me enough to know this is standard operating procedure. Now the fun part, I'm going to stop the recording and make sure that